Hello, boys and girls.
Hi.
What a wonderful day it is today in our money-based economy. Well, sit back and relax and get ready for the guy who's about to ruin everything.
I'm puzzled. Are you really seriously suggesting that Jesus Christ was a mushroom?
Wayne, Jesus was a mushroom Roberts.
Yes. You are dealing with a secret cult, a secret society.
Welcome to Waning Interest.
Welcome to the Waning Interest Podcast. Hour number 79, February 23rd, 2022. That's a lot of 20s. Ready for some Wayne damage? The babbling dabbler, the smallest click on the internet, the pinball brain in your favorite machine. It's like a diary. Or a book. But not as stale. Or coherent. Just for the time capsule, but not saying any more about it, as they're saying on some mainstream places in the White House, I believe said it, the world will hold Russia responsible for what's happening in Ukraine. After we armed Nazis over there to start shit. And we're fine with Israel bombing Syria some more at the moment, says the U.S. I mean, they should. And the world, to fix a lot of this shit should run mostly on hemp and wood if the same government we're talking about hadn't outlawed it almost 100 years ago, and we wouldn't be as worried about our environment being so poisoned since said outlawing. But, like I said, moving on. The mushy man can when he mixes it to tea, 'cause it can taste like wood. Not that kind of wood, you dirty mind. So, some folks have asked about what happened to the kid in the story that I told last hour. The one about the kid and his mom at the doctor's office. If you're new, welcome. And I made him laugh a bunch, and then he tried to follow me out the door when I was leaving. Like I said last hour, I said to him, "Sorry, buddy, I don't have a car seat." So I had to let him drive. That's what happened. And I took him to his first titty bar. Nothing happened except with the door closing behind me while we waved goodbye to each other and all the adults were laughing along with him. It was like retiring after winning the Super Bowl. I mean, the stupid bowl. It's a good closer. Speaking of the stupid bowl, how about Bengals receiver T. Higgins going for his own halftime show doing the Timberlake on his touchdown pass, but no nipple? Bah! That no face mask, personal foul, offensive pass interference call. That's why it's okay that they lost. What a great time capsule this is, isn't it? You got war, you got the stupid bowl, you got me making a little kid and a whole bunch of people laugh, and having a great closer, literally, as the door was shutting. Did you watch the Super Bowl? With the commercials muted and the halftime show in the off position? like me. The beauty of doing that, the right thing, is it helps you truly not care who wins, just to enjoy the sport and the no calls. Less stress all around. I just hit my hand on my thingy there. You know, it's the little drawer where I keep all my fun stuff. Like I said, less stress all around. And I was a Redskins fan. Sorry, Commanders, since I was 6 or 7, thanks to my dad. And about a decade ago, when I stopped caring and just started enjoying the games, I noticed I didn't have that stress hangover when the Commanders, lost. That I remember having every football season for over 30 fucking years. Was it 91, the last time they went to the Super Bowl? Mark Rippon. Some of you smarty pantses are saying, Wayne, the hangover was from the booze. And for many of those years, you'd be right. But I had a 5-year stretch toward the end of my caring about the Commanders, where I didn't drink a drop of booze. Still felt like shit because they played like shit, or got boned by bad calls, or had shit coaches, or have had a shit owner since Jack King Cook. And I've been calling for them. I've been saying their original name, but I've been calling for them to change their name. You can go back and listen to my old podcast, Nate the Bullet, or you can also see that ET thing and an interview with a MAPS therapist who, gives people either ketamine or psilocybin. I don't know what he's doing now because that was so long time ago. Dr. Cole Marta. Anyway, when I would do sports stuff at Nate the Bullet, and I think there's some early waning interests where I said, fuck the Redskins, change your name. Shit like that. I've been saying to change their name for a long time. So don't get all pissy because I said Redskins. Commanders. I used to have that shit all over my place. I think I told the story in a previous hour where my dad used to, thanks to my dad, my bedroom and then my first apartment of my own was furnished a bunch by my dad. I had a light lamp that the lamp shade was half of a football. And on the base of the lamp was a couple of pigs dressed in Redskin stuff and said Hogs on it, like the Hogs from the 80s. That great offensive line, Jeff Bostic, Russ Grimm, Mark May, so many others. And I'm old and I can't remember them all, but that's pretty good for somebody who's not an ESPN douche. God, ESPN sucks now. But anyway, I had that. I had, oh my God, what else did I have? I had a whole bunch of other stuff I've forgotten now because it's gotten broken or it's gone. One of the funniest was move into my apartment in Los Angeles, in Studio City, years ago, almost 20 years ago. And whenever my dad would send me something, he'd always say, you got something coming, you get a surprise coming. And 9.5 times out of 10, it was a Redskin thing, and I'll remember some more as I keep going. I wasn't prepared to talk about this. It just went there. And there was one time he told me I had a surprise coming, It's a big box, but it's really, really light. And I start opening it up, and I start seeing the maroon already. And it's like a heavy cloth thing, kind of thick. And I start pulling on it and pulling on it and pulling on, and it was like a magician's handkerchiefs. It just kept going and going and going. What the fuck is this? Thinking it's a tapestry. And I realize it's a shower curtain, a redskin, Commanders, shower curtain. Unfortunately, my dad hadn't visited yet, so he didn't realize that I had doors on my shower. So I did the next best thing. I used it as a fucking tapestry. Was there for years on my wall, right next to Jim Morrison. And unfortunately, a Bullet poster. Because Steve McQueen, turns out, was kind of a cunt. The poster was cool, and that's part of why I named the podcast that I mentioned earlier in my first podcast that I only did like 17, I think. Some were hours, some were half hours. That's where I got the Bullet from. I spelled it that way, Nate the Bullet, if you want to look it up. And I've put the link here for many times on many of these hours for the ET mushroom DMT relationship. And I just saw this guy, Jesse Michaels, has started this YouTube page, and he's done a couple of things with psychedelics. Short videos, they're less than 20 minutes. Like the first one I saw was about aliens and how fungi came from aliens, the whole panspermia sort of thing. I went, see, there it is, E.T. thing, it's all that stuff I pointed out with the, red and white. Elliot's wearing red. E.T.'s wearing white right before they fly, just like the Amanita muscaria that's based on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and the reindeer fly, and that's their favorite snack, and I believe I mentioned that in hour 78. And some others. But then he did one about, he's almost there. It's like he's Mikey who hasn't solved the last puzzle to get down that tube to where you land in the water, and wow, there's that big fucking ship of One-Eyed Willie's. He's not quite there, because he has another video where it's about, did Jesus do mushrooms? Was Jesus the leader of a mushroom cult sort of thing? The Gnostics and a lot of that stuff religions are based on. And I know he actually was the mushroom. That's what one of the things that explains the virgin birth. It's fungi. They don't need sperm. They don't do that kind of thing. They don't have the sexies because they're already the universe. That's why when you partake in hanging them up to dry and then eating their flesh and shaking hands with the universe. Anyway, what? Who the fuck? Is it time for a drink? I think so. But back to the Super Bowl. Stupid Bowl. I love that I encourage people to not watch commercials, even though voicing many of them was how I earned a bunch of my living for a while. And now I have nothing. I believe that's called growth. With a little theft thrown in. But it's amazing to. It's funny because when I was somewhat successful in the voiceover world, and I would meet people who were trying to get in, or they would ask if they wanted to, if they were going to, what would be some of the best things to do, and I would just give them the same homework that I was given, which was instead of when you go through, when you're listening to the radio, we're talking the old days, when you're listening to the radio, instead of jumping to another station when the commercials come on, flip that and just switch to stations where there are commercial breaks and listen to the commercials and start understanding the rhythms. It's all pattern recognition. So you listen to them a whole bunch. You really pay attention. Oh, they do this here and they go up there. And some of it back then, of course, was much more produced. You want more of a natural read now, and you could still do that. It's still the same homework. You can read it naturally. It's just like learning lines for a play or a movie or a television show or a UFO experience. But listening to the commercials instead of punching through whenever commercials were on, just do that. Understand a little mic technique. Now people don't have to fucking ask. You just go right to YouTube and find out a whole bunch of stuff and see different things. And now everybody, it's so funny how it seems like everybody's broadcasting like a radio show where they get the microphone hanging in front of them and all that stuff. I've had this same microphone I'm talking into for, 07, I think I bought this Rode Podcaster. Pretty sure it was 07. And now, 15 years later, where you go on YouTube and you just see all these people that look like they have a radio station in their house, a studio in their house, and so many people are. It's, I just another one of those things where I have to say, "Did it first, bitches." Not quite first, but I was in that first batch. I was in that first batch of East Coast Guns N' Roses fans. Nobody would listen to me. And then Sweet Child hits, and then, A few years later, same thing happens with Soundgarden. A bunch of us, I think it was 5 of us. I went to see Guns N' Roses, 91, New Year's Eve, Joe Robbie Stadium. Soundgarden's opening, and they're pimping the Bad Motorfinger album, and I had the Louder Than Love. I had that album before the previous. I thought they were cool. My friends didn't really know them. They didn't have the greatest sound system while they were opening. You could see all Guns' fucking sound system with tarps on it while Soundgarden was playing. But it was still good. But a lot of them, they bust my balls. Fucking, those guys, I can't believe you wasted your money on their album. Those guys fucking sucked. I was like, nah, it's okay, whatever. 2 years later, those same fucking people. Black Hole Sun's the greatest song ever written, man. Fuck you. It's not what you were saying a couple years ago, and I'd say Jesus Christ Pose is a better song. Rusty Cage from Bad Motorfinger also. Better song than Black Hole Sun. But you should be saying Spoon Man from the album that you're speaking of. And of course they wouldn't know what the fuck I was talking about, and they'd go right back to doing whatever they were doing. Which was, 3 years behind me. I think it's from growing up next to a mental institution. I have this attraction. I attract people, no offense to the whips. What? I attract, I've had a lot of disabled folks, like a couple of epileptic friends, one grand mal, one the zone out seizures. One of my best friends was blind, who's no longer with us. Hey, Mike. Yeah, buddy. I've always had these folks around until now with my hermitizing. I don't even want a cat or a dog right now. I just don't want to pick up shit. I got enough of my own, obviously. That's what the podcast is for. To get rid of it for you so you can pick it up. Wow, that was a nice, not knowing you were going to do that full circle of poop. But anyway, point is, I attract slow people. Not that I'm not slow. I'm just a little bit faster than a certain chunk. We're all at different levels. We're all the same. We're all looking in the fucking mirror. And that's the hardest thing to remember second to second. But when you do, that is that bliss. When you're able to, boom, when you're able to remember that reflection for a certain amount of time, which is what meditation is about, which is born from psychedelics. I can do this all day. Growth. But that spiritual bliss, that's what that is, and it's easier to get there with psychedelics, which is why where it makes sense to where the non-psychedelic meditation is born from that. But that sustaining of remembering, realizing that outward, it's all you. It's all a reflection. And when you remember that as much as you can, as much as you believe anything, and you're able to sustain that for just, even 30 seconds is fucking, whoa, you feel like you understood the Matrix a little more. All right, that's a little too serious. Got really deep there. Look, that puddle was deep. We got mud on our shoes. Luckily, I'm wearing boots. Boots! With such a bottomless pit of lies and stealing from all of us, someone defending the warmongering U.S. government sounds like someone who still thinks Kyle Rittenhouse shot black people. Choose your own word for that, seeing how there are many, because I don't want to offend any willfully ignorant nitwits. Did I get sidetracked from the voiceover thing? Yes. Oops. But to go back to that, but to go from that kind of homework to where you're listening to commercials all the time to understand the trends, how to do it, and understand what they're doing, what kind of this or that. Do they want this kind of thing, or do they want just this kind of thing? Or do they want this kind of thing? Or there's the video games where you're a person, you're a character. I can't believe how many times I read for those fucking Walking Dead video games, so many of them, and didn't get one. It just fucking blows my mind. But it's the funny thing is, I did Medal of Honor 4, if you never played it. I know I couldn't because, man, it was too tough to get through. Because each time you get through a level, then you're listening to me, who you're playing, William Holt, go through what we just did and then what we're going to go do now. Verdun, or it's a World War II thing. I listen to that when I can get to it. There's pieces where I can hear it. And I'm like, geez. This was early. This is '07 when I did that, so it was early on. I wasn't as good, and I was very nervous. Especially because I was replacing the original person, so I felt like I could be replaced any moment. But to hear that, and I'm like, just like any old stuff, like with anything, anybody. And then as I got better, and then booked less, and then I'd hear some of the stuff when these video games would come out that I had auditioned for and didn't get. And I had saved in my send box to my voiceover agent, there's all the auditions, and they're small, so they don't take up too much space, the MP3s. And I'd go back and I'd listen, I go, oh my God, they hired that person? Look, I did it much better. That is way better. And I know, which meant that there were a lot more much better, because I got so down on the video games because it was like I was doing it for nothing. Because a lot of these video games, I'm not a gamer, but then when I would catch some of their stuff, either seeing you go on YouTube and you can check out them people playing it, and a lot of the stuff is meh. Not saying I was the greatest, but when you go back, when you still have your auditions, and then a year and a half later when it comes out, or however long, and then you listen, you can hear the difference. Man, that sounds way better, and they're looking for more realistic. Mine's way more realistic. They're still sounding like you're doing cartoons in the 90s. So that's why I quit. Fuck them, motherfuckers. Did a lot of gigs, a lot of different gigs. Did some sound-alikes, video games, beer commercials, what is the video game thing? Not just the video games, but there was some where I did the commercials for it. Was it EA? Not EA Sports in the game. Not that one. But it was EA Games, yeah. A lot of internet stuff for like Toyota, and oh my God, I can't even remember. It's been so long, but fuck that shit. That's what I'm saying. This is way more fun. Because I write the script and don't stick to it. Just because I like to change subjects really quick. I'm not a Trump person. I hate them all. But when folks say Obama was a great president, it makes me think they watch Columbo episodes where you find out the killer in the beginning and wonder through the episode who done it. And that's what it seems like. They tell you right in the beginning, and then you're sitting there in the middle of the show going, I wonder who the fuck it was. Just fucking all those facts about Obama, and why you just keep looking past them. Ran out of fucking bombs. Droned more than Bush. Wall Street went to them, not us. His whole cabinet was Wall Street. It is fake. It's all bullshit. Stop saying he's a great president. And just one more thing. It goes for you as well, Joe Rogan. I love you, but stop fucking saying that. Stop saying fucking Obama was our greatest president. That's the one part of that thing, that video, that some people put together after they tried to cancel him recently, where the one it was centered on because people were calling him right-wing, because he hunts and he has some right-wing people on, even though he endorsed Bernie. He's for UBI. He's for universal health care. Right-wing. But one of the things they used in putting the video proving that that's bullshit is they used a thing about how he talks about how Obama was our greatest president in our lifetimes. Ugh. They've all fucking sucked. Stop saying that. I'll defend Joe Rogan, but I won't defend stupid shit that he says like that. Ugh. Ugh. Slave trading in Libya now. Libya was one of the greatest places to live on the planet, and we blew it the fuck up during Obama. Why? Because they in Iraq were going to get away from the petrodollar. Just look it up for yourself. Did nothing really for the black community. Built cages. Was called the deporter-in-chief. There's much more, but I'll leave it there for folks to look up those things for themselves. And it makes me fucking sick, which is why I had to share. You ever find yourself sitting all comfortable at the window, staring out at the beauty of nature and life and thinking, how did I end up in the psych ward? Again. And why am I comfortable? So I recently put up a 14-second video saying I was Candace Bergen. And a little promo for the podcast, talking about the pod. I listen to the I'm Candace Bergen, but I listen to Waiting and blah, 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 blah. And then I ended it with Praise Manson. And some folks took it seriously. That's funny. I open it by saying I'm Candace Bergen. Beard, long hair, dude saying he's Candace Bergen. Murphy Brown. Which has a connection with the Manson thing because she dated Terry Melcher at a certain time when the whole thing when he was trying to do stuff with Manson and before, music-wise. Speaking of Manson, Paul, Danny, Mr. Beckham from the podcast gave me a nice thank you for the shout-out on hour 78. You're very welcome, and I want a dune buggy in return. For those not initiated in the Manson stuff, dune buggies were a big part of stuff in the Manson story. The Watson-Kasabian murders, or killings, or murder. Yeah, it wasn't the Manson shit, that's for sure. Not so much. Anyway, that guy you hear on the promos, and you heard him at the front of the beginning of the hour, that's Joe Cruz, cruzvo.com, CRUISEVO. Link should be there at the bottom. If you're listening on YouTube, because it's everywhere, except for SoundCloud at least, I'm thinking about going up there. But on YouTube, for some reason, you have to copy and paste Joe's link. Because for some reason, on my laptop, either way on YouTube, it goes to where it just doesn't work as well. So you gotta copy and paste Joe's email if you want Joe for any voiceover stuff. And my email, podcast email, waitinginterestpodcast@gmail.com. You got the Patreon, patreon.com/waitinginterest. All the links should be there in the info. And all the hours are at the Patreon. If you're wondering, you're looking at stuff like, say, if you're on Apple right now or Spotify, and you're going, why do they jump around? Why does it seem like there's some hours missing? Is this guy really good like Joe Rogan? No. Well, yes. But nowhere near as popular, obviously. then welcome to the smallest click on the internet. No, but the reason it jumps is the ones that you don't see if you're on Apple or Spotify or YouTube or other places that it's up. Stitcher. I can't remember if there's a few others. Is because all the ones that are not unlocked are on Patreon. And $2 a month, as low as $2 a month. Nothing to it. And this is all I got, so I don't mean to sound like I'm begging, because I'm not. I definitely don't want no whips that ain't got no monies. Ain't got no ducats, as my dad would say. And the last big bunch of ours have all been unlocked because of the quarantemic that we went through, and because it's all about my people's power, and thank you to my peoples. The Waning Interest Podcast Pack, the whips. No ads, right? See? Isn't that great? Isn't that one of your favorite parts about this so far? 36 fucking minutes and you ain't hearing no ads. Twitter and Instagram, Wayne Roberts 811. I saw the actor Nick Searcy. If you don't know, some of you might know the name, but you definitely know his face. If you watch Justified, he was Timothy Oliphant's boss. They always had real funny back and forths. Well, I saw him on Tim Pool's podcast recently, and I couldn't remember if I had told, and I'm too fucking lazy to go back in the notes because it's been so many years. So many years. But I worked with Nick on a movie, Runaway Jury. You might not see me in the movie because I got cut out, but you'll see my name in the credits, which is why I get those tiny little residual checks. I had a scene with Nick, which was in the movie. If you've seen Runaway Jury, Nick plays Gene Hackman's head investigator, and he's investigating. He's traveling all over the place trying to figure out who John Cusack really is. And right before he finds out, he's at this school, and in order to get to some files, which it cuts to right into him at the files, they cut my little piece out where he bribes me to get to the files. And the movie's all about bribes, so I figured, because I saw the whole script, and I was like, man, I can't get cut out because this movie's all about bribes, and I'm the first bribe to get to John. And it wasn't because of my performance. Gary Fleeter actually says it in the commentary that he had to cut a lot out, and he did. Jesus Christ, when I read that script, Jennifer Beals was in it a lot. I saw the movie and I went, ooh, she got my treatment. It was a lot of stuff. But like I said, I can't remember if I told this before, but right before we were in New Orleans, and Nick and I were sharing a trailer. It was a dual thing, so he had one half and I had the other. And then we were outside this place in New Orleans. It was like a big library that was, the inside was sitting in as the lobby to this college. And I was playing a clerk at the college that Nick, obviously, like I said, bribes to get into the files in the back. So we're in our trailer, and you get dressed. Obviously, I've gotten dressed. I filled out my paperwork. I'm looking at the sides again just to be prepared, which went really well. But before that happened, I'm sitting there and I'm going over my sides, and all of a sudden there's a big bump in the trailer, and I'm sitting in a chair, and boom, the chair moves. Everything moves one way. I'm like, what the fuck? Did somebody just back into this? And just as I say that, boom again, and then the trailer is tipped. From my end, I'm on the top part, and then it going heading down. And what the fuck is going on? And I get to the door, and I swing the door open, and there's all the PAs looking at me. You okay? Everything okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And then all of a sudden, the door to my right, Nick's door, opens up, swings open, because we're leaning, we're tipped, and Nick's head pops out. And they're like, Nick, you okay? And he goes, yeah, I guess. Good thing I wasn't taking a piss. Somebody had backed into our trailer and knocked it off the blocks, and then dink, we were sort of pointed up like we were going to be taking off, shooting to the moonage. But Nick, and then we, like I said, that's one of those fucking weird things that happen. We go in, and I think we shot for 2 hours or so, maybe a little bit more. All of it went really well. It was fun. Just being a kind of a cunty. I just had to, basically, that's what I was doing. I was just ignoring Nick's character until he slides money towards me. And then I'm all about, oh, it's kind of neat. And I really wish that had been in the deleted scenes. Maybe someday, who knows? I actually called and tried to find out if there was any way to get the footage, even though it wasn't in the movie, for my reel, but wasn't able. And how I found out I was cut out, Nick and I got along so well, he actually gave me his number, because I told him that I might be moving out to L.A. from Nashville, which I ended up doing. And because that's how I got the gig. I lived in Nashville. That's how I ended up getting the gig. That was the stuff that was shot in New Orleans and Atlanta and stuff. So a bunch of months later, almost a year later, or later that year, because it kept getting pushed, the shoot, because of the hurricane that hit New Orleans at that time. I can't remember the name, which one it was. It wasn't Katrina, I don't think. It was one before that. And I had talked to Nick a couple of times before I moved to LA, and when I did move to LA, a little while after I moved out there, they were having, it was going to be the premiere, and I called him up, jokingly asking if I could be his date to the premiere. And he laughed, of course, and then said, damn, man, I hate fucking being the one to tell you, but you're actually not in it. And he knew, because he'd worked with Gary before, like on From the Earth to the Moon and some other stuff, so they knew each other. So Nick already knew what was cut out that he had shot, and he knew that part of that was us. So that was a big fucking ugh. But I went and saw it anyway, just so I could see my name in the credits, which was still kind of neat. Hey, that's my name. I wasn't in it, though. Point is, Nick was there January 6, 2021 at the Capitol, and saw cops removing barricades to let people in. He made a documentary called Capital Punishment, capitalpunishmentthemovie.com. But, they say it was an insurrection. Oh, they let him in. You've heard that, and it's true. There's video of it. How could you fall into that manure of thought that it was an insurrection? You can't do that. You gotta, oh man, it's so gross. That's one of the reasons you gotta get away from that fucking television. I'm actually thinking I'm talking to people that think that way, and I'm probably not. If you listen to this podcast, you probably don't think that way. You know that calling it an insurrection is an insulting. But anyway, check out Nick's documentary. I don't know if I didn't actually go to the thing, but I don't know if you have to pay for it, but it's capitalpunishmentthemovie.com. And yeah, I know some people died. Yeah, but I believe it was 4, and 2 of them died by suicide. You know, all those things that we've had with the government, people involved in stuff that, die by suicide, but with 2 in the back of the head. On a lighter note, got a retweet from comedian Joe List. Of course, he was in the video clip that I tweeted, so that probably helped. One of my guilty pleasures, I think I mentioned it in the last hour, definitely got to watch Tuesdays with Stories with Joe List and Mark Norman. Very fun, and it reminds me, it's funnier, and it moves a lot quicker, I would say. A bit quicker, because you got 2 of them going back and forth, but Tuesdays with Stories sort of reminds me of the radio show that I did with my ex-wife back in Miami. So basically, she was the driver, talking about whatever, and I was just, popping off whys that didn't take anything seriously. She was more the serious one. She was the straight person, I was the gay one. And listening, watching Joe and Mark, the way they do it, they're just going back and forth. But the way Joe tends to tell stories that are a little bit longer, and Mark just continually just popping off the silliest shit every other sentence of Joe's. And Joe just, most of the time, just doesn't ignore it. He'll slightly acknowledge it or whatever, but then just keep going. And that was like, that was like how we were. That's how we got, better. There was a few times at the beginning, even though we started that way, like, okay, you're the serious one, I'm the wise ass. Then we'd have commercial breaks or the end of the show, and she'd be like, well, I was trying to be, get to somewhere. And I know, you go there and you just ignore most of my wacky shit that I say. You just keep going. That's what's funny. If you just take that little second and just keep going. That's Larry Sanders-esque. That's to me, that's that's that dry British humor. Just slight acknowledge, if not anything, just a pause and just keep going like it didn't happen, but let it breathe for people that aren't paying attention. Laugh. But just keep going, sweetie. And a few times we'd kind of butt heads, and then usually what would happen is she'd listen to her tape of it that I would make sure she would get so she could, when she was driving around, so she could listen to for her own, what should we do more of and less of, that kind of thing. Critiquing your own shit on your own, listen to it. And then she'd usually come back and go, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, if I just keep going. And those times when she did, when we would just go off, she'd want, no matter how serious the subject, sometimes I'd get serious too, of course, but those little pop-offs, they're funnier if they're just, don't go, what does that mean? No, don't. If you just keep going, it's so fucking funny. And listen, Tuesdays with Stories, if you've never checked it out, check those guys out. They're so fucking funny. And you'll know what I'm talking about if you give it a whirl. Give it a goog, give it a whirl, as Mark Norman would say. Comedy. But also in the last hour, I was like, I couldn't remember. I had this note about the WLWS, a certain place that I worked at for a little while, helping to put this house back together. And there was a name tag story that I'd forgotten. So, of course, you got to wear name tags at this place. And one of my coworkers named Tim, there was a girl that worked in another department right near us, internet, and when he wasn't looking, he had taken his vest off, and when he wasn't looking, she switched his name tag. So for the next day or so, he walked around with this name tag that I don't remember. It wasn't Sally, but it was something like that. And he didn't know, but everybody else kind of, would get a chuckle if they were paying attention. Then he finally caught on, but in the middle of that, I was, it was the beginning of my employment there. So I had to spend some time in a room where there was a bunch of computers and for a couple hours, I had to do some computer shit. And that room was super cold. So there was one day I was in there and I had taken my left arm and I pulled it into my shirt, out of the sleeve and into the shirt to keep my arm closer, skin, it was so fucking cold in there, just to keep it warm, but I needed my other hand out so I could, my other arm and hammer out for the mouse, for the computer. And one of the other new employees had come in and seen me sitting there for a while, a couple of times, one day that I had my arm in my shirt. And when I saw her again, a couple of days later, she was all surprised looking at me. And she was like, "Oh my God, I thought you only had one arm. When I saw you sitting there at the computer those couple of times, I thought you only had one arm." Unfucking believable. So what I did was I changed my name tag to Bucky. Pretty sure a good chunk of you whips are MCU fans, so you got the reference. Winter Soldier, you're welcome. Oh, the new Playboy doc series, Secrets of Playboy on A&E. I ain't watching it, but I read an article about it. And it's really weird reading a story about Hef, and then there's a mention of the father of a lady that you dated years ago. And just a few weeks ago on the podcast roast, I told them of a lady that I was with for a few weeks. But like the third time I crawled out of her bed and stepped into her dog shit, I had to leave that club. That was her. Nice to find out the whole family was filthy, and I dodged a bullet like Neo. So if you're doing your detective work, yeah, her dad was mentioned in there, even though he wasn't famous, but her mom was. Go do your detective work, because I ain't saying no mo. So what do I have left? Should I tell the Chris Baker story, the WIRD story? Did I tell that story before? Or did I not? Or should I tell the Lemmy Rainbow story? Well, because Beckham from the podcast, Mr. Beckham, is going to be going out to LA soon, and maybe all three of them will be going out to LA to see a whole bunch of Manson haunts. The podcast is basically like an online book club when it comes to the Manson case. Cutting through the helter-skelter bullshit. Not saying that Manson's great or anything, but It's fun. Check out the podcast. But I told Mr. Beckham he's going to go to the Rainbow. And I met Lemmy from Motorhead at the Rainbow a few weeks after I first moved to LA in 2003. A friend of mine and my ex-wife's worked in a business called pornography. She did media shit, website stuff. She wasn't a model or anything. She was behind the scenes business salesperson sort of thing. But she was connected to a lot of stuff. Anyway, she thought I'd be interested in going to a party that was going to have a lot of porn people just for fun at the Rainbow Bar and Grill on Sunset Strip. And I was more interested in just going there to see, maybe run into Slash or, some other rock and roller. And yeah, the occasional see a porn star, even though I wasn't into porn back then to where I knew any of the newer ones besides Jenna Jameson back in the day. I didn't really know anything at that point. I was out of radio and, out of porn, which is sort of the same thing, but not. Anyway, I said, sure. I can go to there for free and, have a few drinks. And I brought a buddy of mine, and figuring he'd, think it was fun as well. We get in there. It's starting to fill up. And the Rainbow and the Roxy are sort of right next to each other, and there's just a little driveway for a parking lot in the back that separates them. And there's a sort of a wooden fence that's 5.5 feet tall, maybe 6 feet tall, that runs right along the outside bar of the Rainbow, separating it from that little driveway alleyway. And David and I are at the outside bar, get a couple of drinks. We back away from the bar to where that wooden separator wall is right behind us. And I'm standing there to our side if we're looking one way or the other and not, but we're basically back to it and hanging out there. And all of a sudden, as I'm talking to David, I see like a Ziggy sort of thing. Somebody's fucking half a head and just their eyes and their fingers, almost like Wilson, but with fingers in Home Improvement. His eyes just coming over the thing. I'm like, what the fuck? I saw it out of the corner of my eye and realized, wait, what's going on? Oh, wait, I recognize those eyes. I recognize that half head. And it was fucking Lemmy on the outside, looking for somebody, just peeking over the wall, like Ziggy from the cartoon. Or I don't know if it was a cartoon, but it was certainly a comic strip. Only old folk will get that. But the young folk, think Wilson from Home Improvement. I was like, hey, Lemmy. And he goes, hey, mate, I'm looking for someone. Oh, and I just let him sort of look, and then he disappeared. And I don't know if I saw him later on, but I saw a lot of Wow, it's a good thing this hour's up, almost, because, I have to finish off the evening. But so there, I didn't get to, in case anybody from the podcast, tunes in, as I would expect them to. There's the Lemmy Rainbow story. And to be that close to fucking Lemmy and not me walking up to him, that was basically, literally him sort of walking up to me. That's what any smart person would call a win. Watch Redacted tonight. Corbett Report. Jimmy Dorster, Russell Brand, Kim Iverson. But look for yourself. I'm just a fun babbling lecturer. Dabbler. Remember, we're all Neo, a.k.a. One. Sorry we ran long. Had to bump comedian Shane Gillis. Thanks, Gary. Whew. Daddy loves you.